Chapter 4, Part 1 of The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. The Nightland. Chapter 4. The Hushing of the Voice, Part 1. Dearest, thine own feet tread the world at night, treading as moonflakes step across a dark, kissing the very dew to holier light. Thy voice a song past mountains, which to hark frightens my soul with an utter lost delight. Now one night towards the end of the 16th hour, as I made ready to sleep, there came all about me the thrilling of the ether, as happened oft in those days, but the thrilling had a strange power in it, and in my soul the voice of Nanni sounded plain, all within and about me. Yet though I knew it to be the voice of Nanni, I answered not immediately, save to send the sure question of the master-word into the night. And directly I heard the answer, the master-word beating steadily in the night, and I questioned Nanni why she had speech with me by the instrument at that time, when all were sleeping, and the watch set among the monstruacans. For they in the little pyramid had their sleep-time to commence at the 11th hour, so that by this it was 5 hours advanced toward the time of waking, and Nanni should have slept, nor have been abroad to the tower of observation, apart from her father. For I suppose that she spoke by the instrument, her voice sounding very clear in my brain. Yet to this question she made no answer in kind, but gave a certain thing into my spirit, which set me trembling, for she said certain words that began, "Dearest, thine own feet tread the world at night." And it well may be that she set me to tremble, for as the words grew about me, there wakened a memory dream how that I had made these same words to Murdath the Beautiful in the long-gone eternity of this our age, when she had died and left me alone in all the world. And I was weak a little with the tumult and force of my emotion. But in a moment I called eagerly with my brain elements to Nanni to give some explaining of this thing that she had spoken to the utter troubling of my heart. Yet once more she made no direct answer, but spoke the words again to me across all the dark of the world. And it came to me suddenly that it was not Nanni that spoke, but Murdath the Beautiful, from out of all the everlasting night. And I called, "Murdath! Murdath!" with my brain elements, into the night. And lo, the far, faint voice spoke again to my spirit through all the darkness of eternity, saying again those words. Yet though the voice was the voice of Murdath the Beautiful, it was also the voice of Nanni, and I knew in all my heart that this thing was in verity, and that it had been given to me to be birthed once more into this world in the living time of that only one, with whom my spirit and essence hath mated in all ages through the everlasting. And I called with my brain elements and all my strength to Nanni, but there came no answer, neither sign of hearing, though through hours I called. And thus at last I came to an utter exhaustion, but neither could be quiet nor sleep. Yet presently I slept. And when I waked, my first memory was of the wondrous thing which had befallen in the sleep-time, for none in all this world could have known those words, save it had been the spirit of Murdath, my beautiful one, looking from above my shoulder in that utter lost time, as I made those words to her out of an aching and broken heart. And the voice had been the voice of Murdath, and the voice of Murdath had been the voice of Nanni. And what shall any say to this save that which I had in my heart? And immediately I called to Nanni once and again twice, and in a little moment there came all about me the throbbing of the master-word, beating solemnly in the night. And I sent the master-word to give assurance, and immediately the voice of Nanni, a little weak, as was it always when she had not the instrument, but sent the message with her brain elements. And I answered her, and questioned her eagerly concerning her sayings of the past time of sleep. But she disclaimed, and made clear to me that she had no knowledge of having spoken, but had slept through all that time of which I made to tell, and indeed had dreamed a very strange dream. And for a little while I was confused, and meditated, not knowing what to think, but came suddenly again to a knowledge that Nanni's far voice was thrilling the ether all about, and that she would tell to me her dream, which had sat strong upon her mind. And she told the dream to me, and in the dream she had seen a tall dark man, built very big, and dressed in unfamiliar clothing. And the man had been in a little room, and very sorrowful and lonesome, and in her dream she had gone nigh to him. And presently the man made to write, that he might ease him by giving expression to his sorrow, and Nanni had been able to read the words that he wrote, though to her waking spirit the language in which they were writ was strange and unknown. Yet she could not remember what he had writ, save but one short line, and this she had mind of, in that he had writ the word Murdath above. And she spoke of the strangeness of this thing, that she should dream of this name, but supposed that I had fixed it upon her by my first callings. And then did I, with something of a tremble in my spirit, ask Nanni to tell me what she remembered of the writing of that big, sorrowful stranger. And in a little moment her far voice said these words all about me: "Dearest, thine own feet tread the world at night." But no more had she memory of, yet it was a sufficiency, and I, maybe with a mad, strange triumph in my soul, said unto her with my brain elements that which remained of those words. And my spirit felt them strike upon the spirit of Nanni, and awake her memory, as with the violence of a blow. And for a little while she stumbled, dumb before so much newness and certainty. And her spirit then to waken, and she near wept with the fright and the sudden new wonder of this thing. And immediately all about me there came her voice thrilling, and the voice was the voice of Murdath, and the voice of Nanni, and I heard the tears of her spirit make pure and wonderful the bewildered and growing gladness of her far voice. And she asked me, as one who had suddenly opened the gates of memory, whether she might be truly Murdath. And I, utter weak and shaken strangely because of this splendour of fulfilment, could make no instant answer. And she asked again, but using mine old love-name, and with a sureness in her far voice. And still I was so strangely dumb, and the blood to thud peculiar in mine ears, and this to pass, and speech to come swift. And this way to be that meeting of our spirits across all the everlasting night. And you shall have for a memory picture how that Nanni stood there in the world in that far eternity, and with her spirit having speech with mine, looking back through the part-opened gates of her memory into the past of this our life and age. Yet more than this she saw, and more than was given to me in that age. For she had memory now and sight of other instances, and of other comings together, which had some confusion and but half meanings to me. Yet of this our present age and life we spoke as of some yesterday, but very hallowed. Now, as may be conceived, the wonder of this surety which had come into my life stirred me fiercely to its completion, for all my heart and spirit cried out to be with that one who was Murdath, and now spoke with the voice of Nanni. Yet how should this be won? For none among all the learned men of that mighty pyramid knew the position of the Lesser Redoubt, neither could the records and histories of the world give us that knowledge, only that there was a general thought among the students and the Monstruacans that it lay between the northwest and the northeast, but no man had any surety. Neither could any conceive of the distance from us of that refuge. And counting all this, there was yet the incredible danger and peril of the Nightland, and the hunger and desolation of the outer lands, which were sometimes named the Unknown Lands. And I spoke much with Nanni concerning this matter of their position, yet neither she nor her father, the master Monstruacan of that refuge, had any knowing either of our position, only that the builder of the lesser redoubt had come out of the southward world in the beginning, as they had knowledge of by the records. Also, the father of Nani set that ancient compass to bear, for, as he made explanation to us through the instrument, so great a power of the earth-current must be ours that perchance it was our force which did affect the pointer from steadfastness. For indeed the needle did swing in an arc, as we heard, that held between the north and the south, within the westward arc. But this it had done ever with them, and so was a very helpless guide, save that maybe, as we had thought, the force of the earth-current that was with us had in truth some power to pull the needle towards us. And if this were so of verity, we made a reckoning that set the lesser redoubt to the north, and they did likewise, and put us to the south. Yet it was all built upon the sand of guesswork, and nothing to adventure the life and soul upon. Now we of curiosity, though a million times had it been done in the past ages, set the compass before us, having it from the great museum. But as ever in that age, it did spin if we but stirred the needle, and would stop nowheres with surety, for the flow of the earth-current from the crack beneath the pyramid had a power to affect it away from the north, and to set it wandering. And this may seem very strange to this present age, yet to that it was most true to the seeming nature of things, and harder to believe that ever it did once point steadfastly, to prove a guide of sureness and unfailing. For, be it known, we knew the positions of the land by tradition, coming from that ancient time when in the half-gloom they had builded the pyramid. They, having known the use of that ancient compass, and with sight of the sun had named the positions, though we of that far future day had forgotten the very beginnings of those names of direction, and used them but because our fathers did a million years and more. And likewise we did the same with the names of the day and the night and the weeks and the months and the years, though of the visible markings of these there was nothing but only and always the everlasting night, yet the same seeming very natural to that people. Now Nani, having heed to my constant questions, craved with an utter keen hunger that I might come to her, but yet forbade it, in that it were better to live and commune in the spirit than to risk my soul, and mayhaps die, in the foolishness of trying to find her in all the darkness of the dead world. Yet no heed had I taken of her commands, had I but known of a surety the direction in which she might be discovered, and gained some knowledge of the space between, for this might be named by thousands of miles, or but by hundreds, though a great distance it was surely. Yet one other thing there was that has point in this place, for when I sent my speech out into the night using my brain elements, I came to know that, whether I had a knowledge of the north or no knowledge at the moment, yet did I turn oft with a sure instinction to that direction. And of this the master Monstruaken took very great note, and had me to experiment many a time and way, and so enclosed me about with screens, or with bandages across mine eyes, that I could not, save by that inward knowing, have any knowledge to point me the way. Yet would I turn northwards very frequent, by a certain feeling, and seemed unable of speech, if I were turned otherwise by force. But when we asked Nani whether she had an unusualness in this matter, she could discover none, and we could but take note curiously of that which affected my habits, and which truly I set to the attracting of her spirit. For I had mind that she did be somewheres out that way in the darkness of the world, but yet was this no more than to suppose, as you perceive. And the master Monstruaken wrote a study of this matter of the northwardness of my turning, and it was set out in the hour-slips of the Tower of Observation. And so it came to be copied by the hour-slips of the great cities, and made much comment and much calling up to me through the home instruments, so that with this, and the speech that went about concerning my powers to hear, I was much in talk, and diversely pleased and oft angered by overmuch attention and importunity. And now, whilst I pondered this matter in all my spirit and being, how that I should some way come to Nanni, there befell a very terrible thing, and in this wise must I tell it. It was at the 17th hour, when all the millions of the mighty pyramid slept, that I was with the master Monstruaken in the tower of observation, taking my due turn. And sudden I heard the thrilling of the ether all about me, and the voice of Nanni in my soul speaking. And I sent the master word into the darkness of the world, and presently I heard the solemn answer beating steadfastly in the night. And immediately I called to Nanni with my brain elements, to know what thing troubled her in her sleep. And her voice came into my spirit, weak and far and faint, and so that scarce I could make to hear the words. Yet in a while I gathered that all the peoples of the Lesser Redoubt were in very deadly trouble, for that the earth current had failed suddenly and mightily, and they had called her from her sleep, that she might listen whether we answered their callings by the instrument, but indeed no calling had come to us. And they, who had been of late so joyful, were now grown old with sorrow in but an hour or two, for they feared that the fresh coming of the earth current had been but the final flicker and outburst before the end. And even in this short while of our speech did it seem to me that the voice of Nanni grew further off from me, and I felt to have broken my heart with the trouble of this thing. And through all that remained of that sleep-time did I converse with Nanni, as might two lovers who shall presently part forever. And when the cities awoke, the news went throughout them, and all our millions were in sorrow and trouble. And thus it was for maybe a little month, and in that time had the voice of Nanni grown so weak and far off, that even I that had the night-hearing could scarce make real its meaning. And every word was to me a treasure and a touch upon my soul, and my grief and trouble before this certain parting drove me that I could not eat neither have rest, and this did the master Monstruaken take upon him to chide and correct, for that if any were to help, how should it be done if I that had the night-hearing, and heard even now that the recording instruments were dumb, come to ill health? And because of this, and such wisdom as was mine, I made to eat and order my life that I might have my full powers. Yet was this beyond all my strength. For presently I knew that the people of the Lesser Pyramid were threatened by the monsters that beset them, and later I acknowledged from faint, far words whispered in my brain that there had been a fight with an outside force that had harmed many in their minds, so that in madness they had opened the gate and had run from the Lesser Pyramid, out into the darkness of the lands about them. And there had their physical bodies fallen to the monsters of those lands, but of their souls who may know? And this we set assuredly to the failure of the earth current, which had robbed them of all force and power, so that in those few weeks all life and joy of living had left them, and neither hunger nor thirst had they much, nor any great desire to live, but yet a new and mighty fear of death. And this doth seem very strange. And, as may be thought, all this made the peoples of the Great Redoubt think newly of the earth current that issued from the crack beneath the pyramid, and of their latter end, so that much was writ in the hour-slips concerning this matter. Yet in the main to assure us that we ourselves might each be free from a disturbed heart, though some went foolishly to the other event, and spoke of a speedy danger to us likewise, as is ever the way. But the truth of our own case lay, maybe, somewhere between. And all the hour-slips were full also of imaginings of the terror of those poor humans out in the darkness of the world, facing that end which must come upon all, even upon our mighty pyramid, though, as most would believe, so far away in some future eternity that we have no cause to trouble. And there were sad poems writ to the peoples of the Lesser Redoubt, and foolish plans set about to rescue them, but none to put them to effect, and no way by which so great a thing might be done, and doth but show how loosely people will speak out of an over-security. Yet to me there had come a certain knowledge that I must make the adventure, though I achieved naught save mine own end. Yet it were better to cease quickly than that I should feel as now I did feel. That same night, in the 18th hour, there was a great disturbance in the ether about the mighty pyramid, and I was awakened suddenly by the master Monstruaken, that I might use my gift of the night-hearing to hearken for the throbbing of the master-word, which they had thought to come vaguely through the instruments, but no one of the Monstruakens was sensitive enough of soul to account truly whether this was so. And lo, as I sat up in bed, there came the sound of the master-word, beating in the night about the pyramid, and immediately there was a crying in the ether all about me, "We are coming! We are coming!" And mine inwards leapt and sickened me a moment, so shaken was I with a sudden belief. For the message seemed someways to come to me from very near to the great redoubt, as that they who sent it were nigh to hand. And forthwith I called the master-word into the night. But no answer did there come for a while, and then a faint thrilling of the ether about me, and the weak pulse of the master-word in the night, sent by a far voice, strangely distant. And I knew that the voice was the voice of Nani, and I put a question through all the darkness of the dead world, whether she were within the lesser redoubt and safe thus far. And presently there came a faint disturbance about me, and a small voice in my soul, speaking weakly and out of an infinite distance, and I knew that far away through the night Nani spoke feebly, with her brain elements, and that she abode within the lesser pyramid, but that she too had heard the strange pulse of the master-word in the night, and that message, "We are coming! We are coming!" And vastly had this thing disturbed her, waking her within her sleep, so that she knew not what to think, save that we were devising some method to come to them. But this I removed from doubt, saying that she must not build on vain hoping, for I would not have her doubly tortured by the vanity of such believing. And thereafter, having said such things as I might, though few they were to comfort her, I bade her gently to sleep, and turned therewith to the master Monstruaken, who waited in quiet patience, and had no knowledge of that which I had heard and sent, for his hearing was but the normal, though his brain and heart were such as made me to love him. And I told the master Monstruaken many things as I put my clothing about me, how that there had indeed been the calling of the master-word, but not by any of that lesser redoubt, but that to my belief it had come from nigh about the great pyramid. Moreover, it was sent by no instrument, as I wotted that he did guess, but as it seemed to me by the brain elements of many calling in unison. And all this did I set out to the master Monstruaken, and with something uncertain of fear and trouble in my heart, yet with a blind expectation, as, indeed, who would not? Though no longer was I shaken by that first thought of her nearness. And I said to the master Monstruaken that we should go to the tower of observation and search the nightlands with the great spy-glass. And we did this, and lo, presently we saw a great number of men pass over the electric circle that went about the pyramid. Yet they came not to us, but went outwards and towards the blackness and the strange fires and hideous mysteries of the nightland. And we ceased from spying and looked swiftly at one another, and knew in our hearts that some had left the mighty pyramid in the sleep-time. Then the master Monstruaken sent word to the master watchman that his wardership had been outraged, and that people left the great pyramid in the sleep-time, for this was against the law, and none ever went out into the nightland, save the full watch were posted to the great door, and at a due time, when all were wakeful, for the opening of the great door was made known to all the millions of the great redoubt, so that all might be aware, and know that no foolishness was done without their wotting. Moreover, ere any had power to leave the pyramid, they must pass the examination and be prepared, and some of this have I set out already. and so stern was the framing of the law that there was yet the metal pegs upon the inner side of the great gate, where had been stretched the skin of one who had disobeyed, and was flayed and his hide set there to be a warning in the early days. Yet the tradition was remembered, for, as I might say it, we lived very close about the place, and memory had no room whereby she might escape. Now the master watchman, when he heard that which the master Monsterwaken had to tell, went hastily with some of the central watch from the watch-dome to the great gate, and he found the men of the sleep-time watch with the warder of the gate all bound and stopped in the mouth, so that none could make outcry. And he freed them, and learned that nigh 500 young men from the upper cities, by the bigness of their chests, had come upon them suddenly, and bound them, and escaped into the night through the eye-gate in the top of the great gate. And the master watchman was angry, and demanded why that none had called by the instruments of the watch-house. But lo, some had made to call thus, and found them unable to wake the recorders which lay in the central watch-dome, for there had been tampering. Now, after this, they made certain new rules and laws concerning the order of watching, and made tests of the lesser instruments of the inward pyramid nightly upon the coming of the sleep-time, which was, even in that strange age, by tradition called night, as I have given hint, though hitherto, until the way of my story was known, I have used a word for the sleep-hours that was yet not of that time, but somewhat an invention to make this history free from the confusion of night and day, when in truth it was always night without upon the world. Yet after this shall I keep to mine use the luxury of the true names of that time, and yet how strange is it that the truth should be of so little to our thinking. And so to go forward with my telling, for though all this care were now taken, it had no force until afterward, and at this moment were those poor foolish youths out in all the danger of the Nightland, and no way by which they might be succoured or called back, save that fear or wisdom should come to them quickly, that they cease from so wild an attempt. For it was to make rescue of those in that other unknown pyramid out in all the darkness of the world's night that was their intent, as we had speedy knowledge from those boon friends that had been in the secret of their plot, which had seemed to them great and heroic, and was so in verity, but that neither they who went nor they who stayed had a true awareness of the danger they had dealing with, being all naught but raw and crude youths, yet doubtless with the makings of many fine and great men among them. And because some had thus abetted that which they knew to be against the law, which was framed to the well-being and safety of all, there were certain floggings which might the better help their memories in the future as to the properness of their actions and wisdom. Moreover, they who returned, if any, would be flogged, as seemed proper after due examination, and though the news of their beatings might help all others to hesitation ere they did foolishly in like fashion, yet was the principle of the flogging not on this base, which would be both improper and unjust, but only that the one in question be corrected to the best advantage for his own well-being, for it is not meet that any principle of correction should shape to the making of human signposts of the pain for the benefit of others. For in verity this were to make one pay the cost of many's learning, and each should owe to pay only so much as shall suffice for the teaching of his own body and spirit. And if others profit thereby, this is but accident, however helpful. And this is wisdom, and denoteth now that a sound principle shall prevent practice from becoming monstrous. Yet now I must hasten to set down how it fared with those 500 youths that had made so sad an adventure of their lives and unprepared souls, and were beyond our aid to help them, who might not so much as make any calling to them, to bid them to return. For to do this would have been to tell all the monsters of the land that humans were abroad from the mighty pyramid. And this would have been to cause the monsters to search the youths out to their destruction, and maybe even to awaken the forces to work them some dread spiritual harm, which was the chief fear. Now presently, through all the cities of the great redoubt, the news had gone how that 500 foolish youths had adventured out into the despair of the Nightland, and the whole pyramid waked to life, and the peoples of the south came to the northern sides, for the great gate lay in the northwest side, and the youths had made from there, not straightly outwards but towards the north, and so were to be seen from the northeast embrasures, and from those within the northwest wall. And thus in a while were they watched by all the mighty multitudes of the great pyramid, through millions of spy-glasses. For each human had a spying-glass, as may be thought, and some were an 100 years old, and some maybe 10,000, and handed down through many generations, and some but newly made, and very strange. But all those people had some instrument by which they might spy out upon the wonder of the Nightland. For so had it been ever through all the eternity of darkness, and a great diversion and wonder of life was it to behold the monsters about their work, and to know that they plotted always to our destruction, yet were ever foiled. And never did all that great and terrible land grow stale upon the soul of any, from birth until death. And by this you shall know the constant wonder of it, and that sense of enemies in the night about us, which ever fill the heart and spirit of all beholders, so that never were the embrasures utterly empty. Yet many beheld not the land from the embrasures, but sat about the view-tables, which were set properly in certain places throughout the cities, and so beheld the Nightland without undue cranings, or poising of spy-glasses, though less plain seen. And these same tables were some form of that which we of this age name camera obscura, but made very great, and with inventions, and low to the floor, so that 10,000 people might sit about them in the raised galleries and have comfortable sight. Yet this attracted not the young people, save they were lovers, and then in truth were they comfortable seats for quietness and gentle whisperings. Yet now, as may be supposed, with all the peoples of the mighty pyramid grown eager to look towards one part of the Nightland, the embrasures were hid in the crowds, and such as could gain no view therethrough thronged about the view-tables. And so was it in all the hours of leisure, so that women had scarce patience to attend their children, but must hasten to watch again that lonesome band of foolish youths, making so blind and unshaped a trial to come upon that unknown lesser doubt somewhere out in all the night of the world. End of Chapter 4, Part 1.